Welcome to this week's episode of the Daring to Transcend podcast. Today, we are going to join Kelly Jura in Southwestern Connecticut and talk about customer experiences. So today, I'm really excited to welcome Kelly Jura to the show. Kelly is a design trailblazer, seamlessly navigating the intersection of design, marketing, software, and user experience. Her expertise in UX for health and EdTech SaaS products is driven by empathetic problem solving and strategic insight into consumer behaviors. MIT certified in human and computer interaction, Kelly holds patents for proprietary design processes and is on the board of the Design Management Institute. As the VP of Brand and User Experience at ScreenPal, she enhances and develops products that enable video communication for educators. Kelly's transformative leadership at ScreenPal underscores her ability to make ideas accessible and research insights actionable to create beloved products and experiences. A featured industry expert committed to shaping the future of design and user experience, Kelly presents at conferences, hosts masterclasses, and regularly contributes to industry publications. So I am really excited to dive into our conversation today. I know the whole idea of user experience for software products. I've got some experience with that myself, but clearly not to the level you do. So tell me how you got involved in that.
I started my career in advertising about 20 years ago, and I was really lucky in that I was able to see both sides of the business, the creative side and the research side. And that really kind of informed the trajectory of my career. I love that kind of intersection of data, kind of informing how ideas are developed, the strategy behind them, and kind of that iterative approach to improving experiences. I ended up working in marketing strategy and brand strategy. So really thinking about how marketing plays a role in user experience as well as brand playing a role in user experience. And then I made the leap fully to user experience leadership about 12 years ago. I was really fortunate. I had actually done some consulting work, earlier in my career for an entrepreneur who had a really good idea. And I helped him with the business plan and the branding and, kind of getting that, polished look in front of investors. And then from that, he called me up after he got funding. I think I was employee number 3. I worked at that company until we were over 80 employees. That's where I co-authored a few design patents and really rethought the way that people were interacting with healthcare providers remotely. And this, of course, was before the pandemic. Then about 6 years ago, I made the change and went to Screencast-O-Matic. Was actually the original name. And I'm, really excited. About a year ago, we renamed, we rebranded, and we thought through this entire design system at every touch point from Screencast-O-Matic to ScreenPal. And my experience has always been around all of these different touch points, how they're important to the end user experience, whether that's marketing, brands, in the Screencast-O-Matic case, the Screencast-O-Matic name played a role in user experience, as well as the product itself.
Yeah, because it all plays together a lot more than we think it does. I mean, we kind of tend to think about these things in silos that, okay, you've got your brand and then you've got your marketing and you've got your product. And we know there has to be some overarching, themes, but it's really how your company and your software, how the customer experiences the whole thing from soup to nuts, from even the getting to know you phase to the actual using your product phase, right?
Absolutely. And it's one of those things too, I often think about employee experience, how employee experience even fits into user experience. It's really important that people feel like they're representing the brand, that they're a part of a company that they're excited to represent. and how they kind of work as part of the strategy, right? How their role really feeds into that. I always think about, when you reach out to customer service, for instance, you might be in a spot where you're really stressed. You might be very frustrated. You might be under a lot of pressure. And you might connect with a customer service representative who is incredibly empathetic, who solves your problem, who goes above and beyond for communication and just making sure that, your goals are met. That really takes this seemingly negative moment in your day or in your experience, and it turns it around. And the same can be true of the other way. You've called, life in the past where you're like, this person just doesn't like their job.
Yeah, no, that's so really funny because, well, by the time we actually pick up the phone and call to get help, we're usually beyond like even being rational. You're just like so irritated and you take it out on, we don't want to, but we often take it out on the person that answers the phone. So, I had the help desk report to me. I used to answer customer calls myself. And, that's one of the most challenging jobs there is because you've got a customer that's frustrated and impatient and already like, and you've got to not only calm them down, but end up creating a really great experience for them. So I love how you are wanting to tie the employee experience with the customer experience, because I agree with you 100%. Those two are intimately related, a lot more than we think it is. So how do you foster that in your organization, that employee experience and that relating to the customer experience?
At our company, we deal a lot with educators. So we're dealing a lot with very special people who are incredibly kind. They reach out to us with really insightful feedback. Whenever we ask them to provide feedback, they absolutely meet that challenge. They're willing to make their voices heard to better the product. So that's incredible to be in a where you're dealing with a user group that's just, they're trying to connect their students to ideas that they're passionate about. And that's a really special kind of spot to be in. And I don't certainly take that for granted. I think everyone within our company feels that sense of drive to help people connect that viewer, that end audience with their ideas, share that feedback, capture lectures, mentorship, things like that. I think we all understand how we fit into the mission of the Screen Pal. I think that's really important. And I think it's really important, to continually celebrate the wins as a team. Mm-hmm. So we actually a Slack channel dedicated to celebrations and wins. And this includes when I'm, at a trade show, for instance, and I'm meeting with customers and they're giving this really great feedback, or support tickets that come through that say, hey, during the pandemic, you really changed the way I thought about teaching my students. Like that makes you feel really great, makes you feel like you have that. So I think it's certainly being able to celebrate the wins as a team. I think it's also, the brand itself should not live with one person. I'm a big advocate for when somebody comes onto the team as part of an onboarding, we go through an entire brand deck. Who are our customers? How are we connecting with our customers? How do we want them to perceive us? When we're talking to customers, what's our tone of voice? What are the things that we want them to experience when they're interacting with not only the employees, but the product? And we have a lot of those conversations. And then when we're actually, building the product, we have those conversations where we look at the people who we're helping and we try to directly tie that to a pain point that they have. That makes everybody at the company realize that this has an end user who is going to have their workflow improved by whatever we're developing, right? Mm-hmm. So, having a sense of purpose, having that sense of connection to the end user is really important. I've been at companies in the past where, you might be 5, 6, 7 steps removed from the end user, and that's super helpful. And it leaves a lot of guessing. And then, there's a lot of these trade-offs of like, oh, well, it takes this much time to do this. Why shouldn't we do it in a shorter period of time? But when you understand what the end goal is and how you're helping your users, it makes everybody an advocate for the experience at large.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that. And there's so many good little nuggets that you brought up in that. I just want to unpack a couple of them. The one thing to your point is to have that vision of the user, and whether it's in an avatar kind of thing or a specific person that we're working with. Okay, we're working with, teacher X to create to this environment, and whether teacher X is a real person or an avatar that you're creating. It's like, for me, I can relate it to writing a book, right? So, one of the things that my writing coach taught me, when you write a book, you write to one person. You're not writing to the whole world. You're writing to one person, even in fiction. So you're kind of writing to one person. And so with software development, I think it's very similar, where you're developing that code for that person. And when you feel a personal connection with them and you have that image in your head, I think it really does create that sense of purpose and that sense of doing something important, because you're making a difference in someone's life.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And then I think also following up after you've developed it with the feedback that you get, it's so much more motivating than, looking at a chart or something like that. Actually being able to say, hey, this improved the way that I'm doing things in, my classroom or in my organization for onboarding or software development. I'm, doing a better job reporting bugs and giving feedback with your tools. Those are the things that really, really help drive us as a team. From a software development standpoint, we do have personas too that we're always trying to refine and think through. And those certainly do help us gain focus, right, into different behaviors of different groups. And that's certainly something that the user experience team at ScreenPal is constantly thinking about. But when you can actually get a video or a testimonial or, even a support ticket from a real user with some positive feedback, or, all feedback is really a gift. But when you have something where, people are working really hard towards launching a new feature and it's really, it sticks the landing and people are really excited about it, those things you have to share, because those are the things that really drive us to continue to improve the product.
Yeah, no. And I love the celebration aspect of what you're doing, having the Slack channel and having that there to celebrate, where everybody can see it and everybody can access to it, and recognizing both individually and, as a team, what is being accomplished. I think we so often forget that celebration piece. We often say, oh, okay, great, this person did it and liked this, great, we did that, now we're on to the next thing. And we don't actually stop and take in that recognition. And I know, knowing what I know now, I think that's something that I wish I had done a better job of when I was in corporate and a leader, is really stopping to celebrate the wins, because it's so important for our well-being. It's so important for our state of mind, to take that moment and really feel that celebration, not just check the box, but really, wow, I made this difference. I did this, and I can go home today and feel really good about it. And I think I love that you're taking the time to actively celebrate that.
Yeah, we try. I think it's one of those things everybody probably could do more than they're doing, but just making the effort and taking the time to think about it. In software development, a lot of the time we'll do retrospectives after a release, and we'll say, like, here are the things we want to start, here are the things we want to stop, and here are the things we want to continue. And then here are some wins, like here are some just celebratory things, our kudos, and that might be to a particular person, a team. It might be some of those, customer testimonials, some of those types of things. So I've taken that approach as much as I can Even with meeting with my team, what are the things you'd like me to start doing or stop doing or continue doing? What are the things as a team that would help set you up for success? What are some of the things in your particular role that you'd like to see, increased or decreased, or, what are the things to celebrate together? So, I think, I'm always driven by having some sort of structure. So, in software development, there's so much structure into the way things are done. But if I could take that and apply it in a way that's really empathetic and solves another need, I will always do that.
Yeah, and that's a great point, because, structure is so important in everything, right? We, as humans, we like to know, what the rules are, how to follow them, what needs to get done, what the expectations are, all of that stuff around structure. And you're right, software development has a ton of structure around it. But balancing that structure with, to your point, compassion and empathy, understanding that, yes, we follow the structure 95% of the time, but there's that 5% of the time where you're having a really sucky day and you need to take a step back from it, or to take the time to celebrate, or to say, okay, the structure's too restrictive. It's not working for where we are now. I mean, structure has to be a fluid thing in my mind. It always has to be. It's what was working yesterday, still working today. And, while we don't want to change things just for the sake of changing things, that kind of continual feedback loop is so critical for, I think, all kinds of structure.
Yeah, I agree with that. And, my company now, we've been remote since day one. So, we have people in different parts of the country, different parts of the world dealing with different things. Yeah. So it's important to have those lines of communication open as much as they can be. If you have a really hard worker who suddenly is falling off and not attending meetings anymore, are they not a good worker? No, maybe they're dealing with something. Yeah. So let's try to figure what that is, and work with them. So, I think it's good to understand the different personalities that you're dealing with. The same solves will not work for every person. The same structure will not work for every single person. The same kind of approach will not work for every single person. So understanding who you're dealing with on your team, and, understanding kind of baseline how things are, and being able to check in, have those celebratory talks, but also have those transparent, kind conversations when you're trying to figure out, where things stand. It's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get back to your, I love your leadership philosophy and what you're trying to accomplish there, but let's get back to your career trajectory at this point. So when you started out all those years ago in advertising, and in what was your idea of where you thought your career was going to go at that point?
Right. So I started out in advertising. I actually had graduated high school. I was taking classes at night at a community college while I was in high school, so I could kind of develop a portfolio. And then I went to college for my bachelor's degree at night after I worked full-time during the day, because in my head, I thought advertising was the best job there ever could be. In my head, when I was 13, 15, 16, advertising was where it was.
Okay.
So I got that job, and luckily someone took a chance on me, and I think it was just my sheer determination that, I got kind of a junior level role where I was able to observe so much of what was happening around me. And, that was just so impactful for my career. I still think advertising is a very cool industry to be in. And, as I said, when I think about user experience, I really think about how people interact with ideas. And it really wasn't that different in advertising. It's one slice, right? And as I, you open the lens a little bit, you open the aperture, and it's like there's so much more that happens that impacts the way people perceive ideas and the way they experience those ideas. And so, whether it's brand or marketing or advertising, it's still really exciting to me. There's a lot of information, there's data and intelligence to be had. And there's always kind of iterative improvements that could be made every step of the journey.
Yeah. And I love how, to your point, advertising is just one angle of how we interact with a brand or a company. The rest of it. So I love how you've expanded your scope. So as you've, done all the things, and I mean, that's hard to go to college at night after you're working a full-time job. So, kudos for that. I know that is not an easy thing to do. As you've worked your way up through college, through all this stuff, what do you feel like you've given up, or what is your success cost you up to this point, if anything?
I don't know that it's specifically cost me anything. I think by nature, I'm just a really kind of scrappy, stubborn person. Positive way. But if there's ever been something that I wanted, that was a goal to be had for me. It something that I was able to do immediately. But I would figure out a way to make it work. And I would work towards it. And some of those things were not fast. Some of those things did take a while. But all of the things that I thought were really important and that I've prioritized in my life and in my career, I feel like, I've been able to achieve them. That said, I'm a parent. I always feel like I could be a better parent. I'm a manager. I could be a better manager. I'm a designer. I feel like I could always be a better designer. I could always be a better researcher. So, I think, people talk about imposter syndrome and things like that. Sure, I think everybody has that. I think it's healthy. It drives us to want to learn and grow in areas, so long as it doesn't stunt us and it doesn't stop us from trying. I think it's actually quite healthy.
Yeah. And I think, to your point, there's a balance, right? There's a balance between having a healthy, how can I improve? How can I continue to grow? How can I be better? Versus the beat yourself up piece of gosh, I screwed that up. Man, I'm a terrible parent today. Or, it all depends on how we approach that constructive criticism of ourselves. And it's so often, and I think with women in particular, although I'm sure men do it too, is that constructive criticism can easily slide into the beat yourself up and be overly negative piece. The whole, to your point, the imposter syndrome, or the mommy guilt, with they call it, I can't have it all. It sounds like you've really learned to balance that in a positive way, from a growth perspective versus a beat yourself up perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I've had my fair share of beating myself up as well. I do try to balance it. I do try to accept help, which is difficult, right? When help is, well, I will accept help. And just being realistic, for instance, with my kids, it's, you always feel like, oh, well, they have too much technology in their lives. They're not, they're doing this. And it's like, you start to weigh things and say, okay, well, if they weren't doing that, what else would they be doing? Is that better? Okay, well, if that's better, then let's try to shift things into a more positive direction. But, they want to do a play date outside with, the neighbor, while I finish my workday, like that's a great trade-off, versus them sitting on a tablet or, doing other things. Or, you might feel guilty tapping into, relatives or neighbors to help support you when you need that time of support. But, when people offer the help, it's important to take it, because, you have to balance, and you really can't, you have to be able to focus on one thing at a time, really, to be successful at it.
True. And I think that's so important to ask for help and to accept it. And we so often feel like we have to go it alone. I can do this all, and I'm only going to be successful if I do it all. And we're never successful alone. It always takes a team to do it, whether it's parenting or being a leader or anything. It's always part of a team. So I think I love that message that ask for help, take help when it's offered. It doesn't make you weak; it actually makes you stronger.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally. It's funny because it's just so against, my nature, my husband's nature. We're just used to doing things ourselves, and the help is offered, take it.
Yay! It is. It's against my nature too. So I get it. I'm very independent. I like to do everything myself, but it's, I've just learned I can't, right? And not get it, not get everything done and not get everything I want. So it's really a team effort, and I love that. So looking forward for you, without, I know you're happy in your job and you're doing great and stuff, but like looking forward, where do you see your life, your career, your future going?
Yeah, I love what I do for a living. And at ScreenPal, the rebrand was really a huge motivator for me. It took years of research, global research, to come to the conclusion that A, we needed a new name, and B, it should be ScreenPal. So that was just a huge career highlight for me. At this point, I still wake up. I'm still excited. I still have challenges. I have things that are helping me to grow. I have people around me that are mentoring me and helping me grow within my current position and my future position. So, I'm definitely at a point in my career where, I'm learning, at all levels as a manager, as a designer, and that's a really good spot to be.
That's a great place to be. I know I am always very motivated by learning and new challenges. So I love that as a great place to be. So I just want to thank you so much for spending the time with me today, Kelly. I really enjoyed our conversation. I love your ideas about leadership and, the way you're putting your customer experience together on a very holistic level. I think it's a great message. So if people want to get in touch with you and learn more about ScreenPal or about Kelly or your leadership philosophy, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Yeah, you can reach out on LinkedIn, Kelly Jura on LinkedIn, or you could go to our website, screenpal.com. That's another way to kind of see our product in action. LinkedIn is probably the best way to get picked in particular. But I really enjoyed this conversation. It was really nice connecting with you.
It was great connecting with you. I enjoyed it. Thank you again. And thank you for joining us for this week's episode of the Daring to Transcend podcast. I hope you've gotten some valuable insights from Kelly, and you'll join us again next week.